Hello and welcome back to Writing Tutorials. Today, we're diving into something incredibly useful, writing a rental agreement letter. Now, a rental agreement isn't just a simple document, it's a binding contract that protects both the landlord and tenant by clearly laying out all terms and responsibilities. Whether you're renting out a place or preparing to lease one yourself, a well-written rental agreement is crucial. Opening the letter. To start, you'll want to include the date in the top left corner. Now, this might seem like a minor detail, but it's actually really important. Including the date establishes a timeline for the agreement, which is essential if you ever need to reference it later. So, on our sample, the date is November 1st, 2024. Then, list out the basic details for both the landlord and tenant, that's their full names, addresses, and contact information. This section is vital as it clarifies who's involved in the agreement and ensures that both parties know how to contact each other. You'll want to keep it straightforward, start with the landlord's name and address, and then do the same for the tenant's details. Subject line and property information. Next, add a subject line. In this case, it might be something like Residential Rental Agreement for 123 Willow Lane, Cityville, California, 90211. This subject line makes it immediately clear what the letter is about, and by including the exact property address, you're specifying the location tied to this contract. After that, you'll begin the body of the agreement with a brief introduction, which clearly states that the landlord is leasing the property to the tenant. Including the property's address again here reinforces clarity. Imagine the landlord and tenant look back at this document months later, they'll easily see which property is under discussion. Specifying the lease term. Now, onto the lease term section. This part spells out how long the lease is valid. For example, our sample lease is for 1 year, starting from November 1st, 2024, to October 31st, 2025. Specifying the dates helps prevent misunderstandings about when the tenant can move in and when they're expected to leave if the lease isn't renewed. You could also include terms for renewal here if that's an option. Monthly rent payment. The next section is the rent payment. Here, you'll specify the amount of monthly rent, in our example, it's $1,500, and state the due date, which is the first of each month. It's also a good idea to add payment instructions, like whether the tenant should pay by check or bank transfer. This clarity helps ensure that there are no delays or confusion regarding rent payments. The security deposit. Moving on, let's talk about the security deposit. This is a deposit paid upfront to cover potential damages, and here, it's the same amount as 1 month's rent, at $1,500. Mention that this deposit will be refunded within a certain time frame after the tenant moves out, as long as there's no damage beyond normal wear and tear. By setting clear expectations, both parties know what's at stake if the property isn't left in good condition. Utilities and maintenance responsibilities. Now, in the utilities and maintenance section, it's crucial to list out who's responsible for what. Here, we've stated that the tenant will cover all utilities, like electricity, gas, water, and internet, while the landlord handles major maintenance tasks, such as appliance repair and structural fixes. This division of responsibility can avoid disputes over who pays for what, so always be specific in this part. Use of property. The use of property section states that the tenant should only use the space as a residential dwelling. No subletting or commercial use is allowed without written consent from the landlord. These rules protect both the landlord and the property by making sure the space is used as intended. Inspection and entry policy. Next, let's cover inspection and entry. The landlord has a right to inspect the property, typically with 24 hours notice, and that's what's specified in our sample. This clause helps the landlord keep an eye on the property's condition without invading the tenant's privacy. Termination and notice period. So, we left off at the termination and notice section. It's really important to clarify how much notice each party must give before ending the lease. In our example, we set a 30-day notice period. This way, both the landlord and tenant have enough time to make necessary arrangements, like finding a new renter or preparing to move out. In many agreements, it's also specified that early termination by the tenant may result in losing the security deposit, which helps cover the landlord's costs for finding a new tenant on short notice. Governing law. Then, we have the governing law section. This is a quick but crucial part of the letter. By stating that the agreement is governed by the laws of the specific state, in this case, California, it clarifies which legal framework applies if there's ever a dispute. You'll find this in nearly every legal contract, as it makes things simpler if issues come up. Signatures. Finally, let's get into the signatures section. This is where both the landlord and the tenant sign the agreement, along with their printed names and the date. If possible, it's best to have each person sign in ink to give the document more weight as a formal contract. This signature confirms that both parties agree to all the terms in the letter. It's like saying, yes, I've read this, I understand it, and I agree. In our sample, we have the landlord's name first, with a space for the date, followed by the tenant's details in the same way. By laying out the signatures clearly at the end, this rental agreement letter feels formal and complete, giving both parties a sense of security. So, there you have it, a full breakdown of a rental agreement letter. As you can see, this document is more than just a formality. It's a solid, written record that covers every aspect of the rental relationship, from payments and maintenance to rules for leaving the property. By writing each section carefully and clearly, you're creating a transparent, respectful agreement that makes everything easier down the line. If you're preparing a rental agreement, don't hesitate to pause this video or rewind as you go over each section. Take your time, make sure every detail is accurate, and both parties will feel confident about the arrangement. Remember, a well-crafted rental agreement is the foundation of a positive and professional landlord-tenant relationship. Thank you for watching Writing Tutorials. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more writing tips. And let us know in the comments if you'd like to see more videos on legal or professional letters. Happy writing, and we'll see you next time.